Sripadarajam Sharanam Prapadhye. Chapter 15. The account of Bangarappa and Sundara Rama Sharma. I left Sri Dattananda Swami and continued my journey. As I felt thirsty, I went to a water well nearby. There was also a bucket to draw water from the well. When I looked down into the well, I could see a strange sight. A person was hanging topsy turvy, supporting himself on the branch of a tree that grew between the circular rings of the clay casing of the well. That stranger called me with love, Shankara Bhatt. I asked him with wonder how he came to know my name. On that, he replied, "Not only your name, I also knew that you are going to Kurungadda for the darshan of Sripada Srivallabha. I am only waiting to meet you." I was thinking as to how to pull him out of the well. The rope tied to the bucket was very weak. That pious person who sensed my thought said, "You are a man who had fallen into the well of worldly existence with mundane bonds. I broke those bonds and remained in the bliss of the soul in this peculiar yogic posture. How can you uplift me? I will get up on my own accord. If our strength is not sufficient, Sripada will kindly grant us the needed strength." So saying, he stood by my side within the time taken for the flick of an eyelid. I was astonished. He began to tell, "My name is Bangarappa. You are thirsty. I will quench your thirst first." With the bucket he drew water from the well and speedily drank it himself. Strangely, my thirst was quenched. I was surprised. Then we began traveling together. He said, "I belong to a family of goldsmiths. I mastered mantras and tantras. With mantra and tantra applications, I achieved the capacity to kill those whom I disliked. I had a close association with ghosts, ogres, and devils. I used to conduct various activities in the burial ground. People used to shudder on hearing my name. Whenever I was going to any village, the people there used to give me lots of money with the fear that I may cause them troubles and losses by employing ghosts and devils. The major portion of the money was utilized for offering sacrifices to the ghosts and devils who were depending on me. If sacrifices were not offered in time, those evil spirits used to severely harm me. Instead of the tranquility observed in the face of common people, my face used to reflect evil and malicious features of the ghosts and devils. In my wanderings, on account of my past good merit, I once came to Pitikapuram. In the town, which is rendered sacred by the incarnation of Lord Datta, there was no dearth of mean conspiracies and mutual wrangles. I heard strange and wonderful things about Sri Bapanarya and Sri Pada. At first, I wanted to kill Bapanarya. I went to a pond and began drinking handfuls of water without a break. I had many varieties of methods to kill a person. One of them was to drink water thinking deeply about the person to be killed. By this, all the water I drank used to enter into the stomach of that person. Filled with water, the stomach of that person used to get bloated and used to burst. Then the person used to die. The Leelas of Sripada are unimaginable. At the time I was drinking water, Sripada was with Bapanarya. Sripada lovingly stroked the stomach of Bapanarya. Even though I was drinking much water on account of the power of Sripada, it was getting evaporated. After repeatedly drinking water, I was exhausted, but Sri Bapanarya remained safe and sound. I was worried as to why my black magic failed that day. The reason was not known to me. Removing the menace of the evil forces for the worshippers of Sripada. I had a controlling snake mantra. If I recited it, snakes from all corners used to gather at the house of the individual whom I meditated upon. The snakes used to bite that person. I meditated on Bapanarya and chanted that mantra. Then many serpents reached the house of Sri Bapanarya. They climbed upon a wooden trellis at the porch of the house and dangled like snake god vegetables. After a short time, the snakes returned to the places from where they came. In this way, my second attempt also failed. The devils and ghosts who were with me told me bluntly that they cannot go near the house of Sri Bapanarya. I understood somewhat vaguely that all this was Leela of Sripada. As my demoniac nature did not end, I went to the burial ground. There I made an image of Sripada with floor and pieced 32 needles at 32 points of the floor image. By this process, diseases should have overtaken in the body of Sripada in those points. Not only that, the needle should have changed into a liquid form and should have sunk into the body of Sripada. His whole body should have got infested with poison and he should have died. This attempt of mine had also failed. Curiously, during one midnight time, I experienced that excessive water was entering my stomach. It was a death agony for me. All the snakes that reached the house of Sri Bapanarya due to my snake mantra entered my temporary residence in Pitikapuram and bit me. I was having pain in those places in my body exactly where I pieced needles into the floor image of Sripada. In this manner, I suffered in my own body from the reactions of my evil actions. I suffered like hell. I thought it was better to die, but I did not get death. The torments of hell will be known only after death. But I experienced those torments during the night, even when I was alive. When confronted with unbearable troubles, any person would turn towards God. In my mind, I sought the refuge of Sripada. The form of Sripada appeared before my mental eye and he said, Bangarappa, you are supposed to suffer troubles in this world for many years for your heinous sins, and afterwards you are also supposed to undergo many punishments in hell. However, taking mercy on you, I destroyed your sins in this one night. All your evil practices are destroyed. If anyone who is thirsty is visible to you in your mind, when you drink water and quench your thirst, the thirst of that person will assuage even though he is at a great distance. There is a yogic practice in which one has to hang upside down. You will derive bliss if you practice it. To step into the house of my parents or into the house of Sri Bapanarya, merit of many births is required. You do not have that fortune in this life. Fortune is not something which comes suddenly. Misfortune is not something which is given indiscriminately. When the good deeds of past lives suddenly fructify, it is called good fortune. When bad deeds suddenly yield results, it is called bad fortune. As Parmeshwara grants us life, only He has the authority to take our life. Since parents grant us birth, they deserve utmost adoration. I will not show my grace on those who neglect their parents in their old age. You subjected many innocent people to untimely death with your diabolical practices. The result of this sin will haunt you till you see a Kannada Brahmin known as Shankara Bhatt. When he is thirsty, you quench his thirst by using your skill. Then your sin becomes completely erased. That Shankara Bhatt will write my history. At the time of this incident, the age of Sripada was about 7 to 8 years. Dear Shankara Bhatt, I have been waiting for you from the day. Today is an extremely good day for me. Bangarappa concluded his speech. For me, all this story was very confusing. I said, Sir, how can the thirst of another be quenched when you drink water? Please explain the secret of this. Then Bangarappa said, My boy, living creatures who dwell in the Annamaya Kosha have material influences and have experiences in the material world. Living creatures in Pranamaya Kosha have subtle body consciousness. Living creatures in the Manomaya Kosha have connections with the mental world. Living beings in the Vijnanamaya Kosha have connection with the related world to that. The living beings in the Anandamaya Kosha experience bliss. By means of a yogic practice, I can coordinate my Pranamaya Shakti with the Pranamaya Shakti of other living beings. By this and by the feeling of identity, this becomes possible. Through a certain yogic practice in ancient times, Vali was able to get double the strength of the person who faced him. Therefore, Rama killed Vali from behind a tree. Sage Vishwamitra initiated Rama and Lakshmana into two sacred mantras called Bala and Atibala. If the life force is kept ready according to the vibrations of these mantras, one can attract the universal force in the innermost area of the universe into his own system. If the body is not pure, extreme pain will be felt at the time that force enters into his system. Not only that, unable to retain that force, one may even die. In the order of purity, there are 12 stages in the human body. The body of Sri Rama belongs to the 12th stage. The body of Sri Datta is beyond stage 12. Therefore, Sripada, who is an incarnation of Datta, naturally has infinite strength, infinite knowledge, and infinite presence. I questioned, Sir, it is said that Ahalya became a stone from the curse of sage Gautama, and that she was redeemed from the curse as soon as the dust from the feet of Sri Rama touched the stone. Had she really become a stone, or is there any hidden secret meaning in this? Bangarappa explained. You asked a good question. Indra was only having a connection with the shadow form of Ahalya. Not knowing it, in great anger, sage Gautama cursed Ahalya to become a rock. Then Ahalya said to sage Gautama, "You foolish rishi, what have you done?" Gautama lost his intelligence and became a lunatic. He visited many holy places and finally, by the grace of Lord Shiva, regained his health. In the evolution of consciousness, the stone is at the lowest stage. Its soul is in a lifeless state. There are many kinds of rocks. The soul in a certain rock gains the experience of that rock. After those experiences, that soul enters into another class of stone and another soul enters into the first rock. Only people with yogic vision can know how long a certain soul resided in a particular rock. Assume that when a soul was in a particular rock, the rock was broken into two. Then one soul will be in one piece of the rock and another soul will be in the other broken piece. Both the souls undergo some experiences. They do not know what sort of experiences they are undergoing, but when they are in the rock stage, they would experience the unlimited pain of that soul. They do not have life, but the experience of pain would still be there. The description of agonies as experienced in different births by living beings. I question, Sir, it is said that pain or pleasure can only be experienced when life is present. In such a case, how is it possible that a lifeless material undergoes unlimited pain? Then Bangarappa replied, when the individual soul merges with the Supreme Soul, it experiences divine bliss. It cannot be described through speech and it cannot be comprehended by the mind. Similarly, when the individual soul is in the rock, great sorrow as opposed to divine bliss is experienced. It also cannot be described by speech and cannot be understood by the mind. It is a great sorrow experienced when life is extinct. The soul wanders in many rocks and goes on experiencing inexplicable, unimaginable, lifeless great miseries. In that manner, it eventually enters metals. It moves through different kinds of metals and experiences life in a dormant state. Suppose you pour upon a metal some poisonous substance inimical to it, then the life in that metal suffers in the dormant state and leaves that metal, migrating to some other metal. The soul, which identified itself with the metals through the process of evolution, eventually enters into trees. The life force that was dormant when it was a lifeless material now becomes active and will have an urge to stand erect or to take an inclining position. Its roots, which are meant to give it strength, will pierce through the earth and will facilitate its evolution. Thus, the soul enters many kinds of trees and undergoes many experiences. In this way, it would come out of the stage of 50% life and 50% lifelessness and will further evolve as worms and insects. In this stage, its urge for movement is fulfilled. In this manner, as various worms and insects, it undergoes many further refinements and eventually it takes the shape of a fish. Then it takes the shape of a bird. After getting experience in the form of a variety of birds, it then takes birth as a quadruped. Eventually, it takes birth as a very sacred cow. As she gives milk to the people like a mother, she earns merit even without knowing about it. As a bull, it also cooperates with the production of food grains. In the next birth, it will take a human body. Under the influence of mental attitudes, thoughts will get generated. Then they will change into actions. In this fashion, virtuous deeds and sinful deeds are done. The seven stages in the path of spiritual pursuit. A man enters into seven stages during the process of his evolution. In the first stage, the organs of the gross body and the organs of the subtle body are used at the same time. In the second stage, he experiences the subtle world with the help of the subtle body organs and gains the capacity to perform small miracles. In the third stage, he acquires the capacity to travel long distances with the subtle body. Between the third and fourth stages, there exists an overpowering center. When influenced by this, one will continue to remain in the same state of subjugation. When Gautama cursed Ahalya, she was subjected to a severe shock. Then, in terms of consciousness, she felt that she was in the state of a stone. She remained in that state of consciousness till she saw Sri Rama. The body of Ahalya did not become a stone. Only her mind entered that state. It means that she remained in the overpowering center between the third and fourth center. When the dust from the lotus feet of Sri Rama touched her, her mental blossom began to bloom and she regained her natural state. The soul which reaches the fourth stage will get empowered with vast yogic powers. If those yogic powers are used for the welfare of the world in accordance with the directions of the inner self, it will become possible to ascend to elevated stages. On the other hand, if these powers are used for sinful activities and means selfish ends, a downfall is certain. The soul will fall back into the rock consciousness. Afterwards, there will be no opportunity to step into human birth unless it passes through thousands of births. Those who are in the fifth stage are the Sankalpa Gnanis. The Sankalpa Gnanis continue mundane activities while striving for the realization of God. Those in the sixth stage are Bhavagnanis and they have very little concern for worldly activities. Those who are in the seventh stage attain the wisdom of the infinite Supreme Self. Bangarappa thus concluded. The difference between avatars, divine incarnations, and sadhakas, spiritual practitioners. After hearing the words of Bangarappa, some doubts crept in my mind. To clear them, I questioned, Sir, is the evolutionary process limited only to ordinary morals or does it also apply to avatars? Then Bangarappa said, Avatars come according to the need of the time. If a man becomes God, he is called Samartha Sadguru. If God comes as man, he is called an avatar. Here, from fish up to Sri Buddha, the Vishnu avatars are enumerated. A fish can swim and move quickly in water. A tortoise can move speedily both on earth and in water. A varaha, which here means rhinoceros, can run quickly on the ground. The Narasimha incarnation is with the countenance of a lion. the supreme one among animals, and the rest of the body in the form of a man. The Vamana incarnation, with the nature of begging, came essentially with the attribute of tamas. The incarnation of Parshurama came with the main attribute of rajas. The incarnation of Sri Rama took place chiefly with the attribute of sattva. The incarnation of Sri Krishna came principally as an attributeless one, transcending all the three qualities. The incarnation of Buddha is chiefly one of the karma. The incarnation of Sripada Srivallabha is a very distinct incarnation of the Yuga. It is an excellent and an extraordinarily unique incarnation containing in itself the unity in diversity and diversity in unity of the entire creation. There are no yogic traditions or religious or ethical regulations in the entire creation which do not owe their origin to Sripada. The stature of Sripada cannot be perceived by intellectuals, however great they might be. He is his own equal only. All theories and traditions find synthesis in him. He is the first point and the last point for the entire creation. He is the one who supervises, who proposes, and who sets in motion all the affairs of the world, which are pulsating in nature. This is a deep divine secret. In what way can I describe his position, which is not comprehended even by the Saptarishis? My dear Shankarabhat, you are fortunate. Those who got his precious grace are blessed, others are a waste. Thus concluded Bangarappa. Explanation of the results of good deeds and bad deeds. I question, Sir, I have a doubt. If he is the inspirer for all actions, why are some born as good people and why some others are born as bad people? Further, Bangarappa laughed loudly. My boy, you asked a good question. Creation is made with the help of the pairs of opposites. If there is no fear of death, even the mother would not love her child. In the Vedas, the word Purusha was used to mean Atma, but not to suggest the superiority of males. There is as much difference between human dharmas and divine dharmas as there is a difference between human dharmas and animal dharmas. If there are no pairs of opposites, then there is no possibility for the development or evolution. If it is said that God is omnipotent, it does not mean that only good powers are in him. Fraud, deceit, and violence, which you witness in this world, are a part of that omnipotence. Because of sorrow, we yearn for happiness. Without the knowledge of misery, the experience of comfort is not known. These millions and millions of stars seen by us are formed at first in an unorganized manner. When they collided with each other, some more stars are formed. When this happened many a time, they formed into the well organized groups of stars that we see now. The planets in our solar system rotate around the sun in a well established orbit. Dhruva is the pivot for the sun. In this way, the creation runs with mutual attraction and repulsion. The person who is attracted towards God becomes a theist and performs good deeds. The person who has a repulsion for God becomes an atheist and does bad deeds. He is the support for both theist and atheist. He is the prop for those who perform good deeds and bad deeds. Nothing is steady in this play of creation. Those whom you regard as good people today did bad acts in some births. That is why they cannot avoid sorrow even though they are virtuous people in this life. It is nothing but the result of merits from the good deeds done in previous lives that enable bad people to enjoy comforts in this life. Either sin or merit does not yield results immediately, but a severe sin or a great merit will give results quickly. Good books relate the way in which a man should conduct himself to live happily. He is given a limited liberty to do a good thing or a bad thing. When unrighteousness overwhelms and the righteous people are in a state of helplessness, God incarnates with his Maya. It is a wonderful thing that God, who has no birth or death, takes avatar and lives amidst us, breaking the bubble of pride of a king. The rulers of Pitikapuram used to move incognito at times to know about the living conditions of the people. The king had a desire to see Sripada Srivallabha. He immediately sent his soldiers to the house of Appalaraja Sharma with an order. The gist of the order was that Appalaraja Sharma and Bapanarya should bring Sripada to the presence of the king in his court. Sripada rejected this insulting invitation. Appalaraja Sharma was also averse to step into the court of the king. A great personage like Sri Bapanarya would not go anywhere unless dictated by conscience. Sri Bapanarya asked Sripada, "My dear, my precious gold, do you have any objection to go to the court of the king?" Sripada replied, "Granddad, the king has no devotion. Seeing me is not so easy." Sripada told the soldiers curtly, "If your king wants to see me, he can personally come here. He is merely a ruler for this estate. I am the king of all kings and an emperor for the entire creation. I am the Lord of all the worlds. I should not be approached with empty hands. A tribute must also be brought. If the king regards me as his guru, he should also bring Guru Dakshina." Sripada is skillful in creating problems. In the same way, he is also dexterous in solving problems. Sri Bapanarya, Appalaraja Sharma, and Venkatappaya Sresti were thinking about the consequences if the king were to become angry. On hearing the news from the soldiers, the king violently shook with rage. The king shouted, "I will make those weak Brahmins realize what will happen to their lives if I think about it. They do not know how powerful I am." The moment he shouted like this, all his strength departed from his body and he became a weakling. He fainted with weakness. The servants attended to him, but he remained weak. In the meantime, an ugly, deformed female appeared in his mental vision. She roared, "I am Shakti, and jumping into you," and entered forcibly into him. He could not withstand the onslaught of that Shakti. He felt as if his bones were getting powdered. He cried in a low voice, "Go away from me at once." The king underwent a hellish agony when Shakti was going out. In this way, Shakti was entering and exiting from the body of the king. He was undergoing a hellish agony through these two operations. Via the soldiers, information was sent to the royal priest Kota Sundara Rama Sharma. He performed worship to the self manifested Datta and gave holy water. After the king applied Datta Vibhuti to his forehead, the movements of Shakti stopped. Then Sharma said, King, have you seen? Our worship gives quick results. You wished for the darshan of Sripada? That is useless for you. In their house there is an idol of Kalagni Shamana Datta. On account of worshipping that idol, sundry small powers were earned by Appalaraja Sharma. Bapanarya earned some powers from the practice of mantras. Then Venkatappaya Sresti is a Vaishya. He can purchase a good article cheaply by arguing it as a counterfeit one. He can also sell a counterfeit article by making us believe it as a genuine one. With fictitious fabrications, they are attributing incredible powers to Sripada and doing his bhajan. Even though Narsimhavarma is a noble Kshatriya, he became a fool and is praising Sripada as an incarnation of Datta. You need not worry. Our practice of worship is very great. How dare they refuse your orders? The king can bring Sripada here even forcibly through coercion. The king, who heard these words and flattery, said feebly, what shall I gain if I forcibly bring him here? Moreover, I would only get a bad name. I suspect that Sripada knows black magic. Sripada attacked me with a Shakti. Or else, why would the Shakti move in and out of my body? You have to identify a solution to overcome this. You are our family priest and you always cherish our welfare. Then Sharma said, King, the Datta Purana has to be read devotedly by Brahmins. Worship has to be arranged to the self existent Datta. Feasts are to be arranged to Brahmins and they should be given generous monetary gifts. Food should be donated to all castes. If it is done like this, Datta will be pleased. Sripada would be checkmated. The trouble from evil spirits would be removed. The king made all necessary arrangements as per the request of the royal priest. There were many forests in the Pitikapuram region. The menace of thieves was also great in Pitikapuram. Thefts became rampant from the day of commencement of the Parayana of the Datta Purana. The king failed to stop them. There was an increase in the alarming dreams that the king was getting, as if the remedy was worse than the disease. Troubles increased. In dreams, the king was seeing his ancestors. They appeared with weak and lean bodies and were like hungry beggars pitiably craving for food. They questioned, why are you not offering food during the annual ceremony for us? Are we to remain in the bodies of spirits? Can't we have a righteous position? The king said that he was performing obsequious ceremonies for them as specified in the scriptures. The ancestors said to the king, you are doing all those ceremonies, however, they are not reaching us. Brahmins grew strong and satisfied in the name of the obsequious ceremonies. When a Brahmin who practices rituals strictly and conducts the ceremonial rites with mantras, and when the person who performs the ceremony does it with care and diligence, then only it gives noble position to the mains. With the cries and lamentations of his ancestors, the king was not having any sleep during night. This condition continued whether he closed his eyes or opened them. To compound his troubles, the marriageable daughter of the king was seized by ghost. With disheveled hair, she was laughing frightfully and throwing away all the articles out of the house. When they were sitting for meals, plenty of vermin was found in their food. Clothes were suddenly catching fire. Whenever the king was coming to the place where donation of food was being conducted, he was seeing deceased men and women of his dynasty with thin bodies and ghostly traits. The condition of the king was very pitiable. The circumstances in the house of Sundara Rama Sharma, the royal priest, were also being worse. His wife, who was calm and docile till then, was suddenly hitting his head and with cooking utensils. His son was tying him with a rope to a pillar. His daughter was spitting on him and giving blows on his face with her shoes. When Sharma asked for food, they were serving him with dried grass. If he was not eating it, they were threatening to burn him with a red hot iron rod. The Brahmins employed by Sharma, however, continued the Parayana of the Datta Purana. After they finished their meals on completion of the Parayana for the day, ghosts, spirits, and ogres were moving freely in their houses and terrorizing the inmates. Some women were laughing horribly and proclaiming, "The ancestors of the king, for whom you are a priest, without regarding other women as their mothers, raped many women. We are none other than those women. We are those victims. They committed heinous crimes in not allowing us to live comfortably with our husbands. We want to take revenge on the family of the king. We will not get a noble status when you merely give us obsequious offerings. You received large amounts of money from the king. You possess that tainted money, therefore, we want to harass your families." The Brahmins who were conducting Parayana, Sundara Rama Sharma, and the king were all very much frightened because of these events. All of them were remarking with anguish and sarcasm, "We heard that auspicious results are achieved by a devoted reading the Datta Purana. But what is this abnormality? Our reading of this Purana pleased Shankara, and he is now dancing fiercely along with his hordes of ghosts, spirits, and devils. Our reading of this Purana pleased Vishnu. He is granting grace to those beggars who sought food while denying meals to us. Our reading of this Purana pleased Brahma, and he created those who are harassing us with obscene and insulting words. Oh, if by reading of Datta Purana, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are also delighted that they are torturing us by words without allowing us to die, and exhibiting strange dancing to please devils, spirits, and ghosts, then such devotion of Lord Datta is not wanted by us for many births. Man is a laborer in this creation. Sripada is the one who gives wages. Then the Brahmins, Sundara Rama Sharma, and the king surrendered to Sripada and sought his refuge. Then Sripada averred, "Every human being in this creation is a laborer, and I am the owner. If I am pleased, I will give more wages than those that are due to you. If I am displeased, I will reduce your wage to account for your bad deeds and will give you the balance. I am the self manifested Datta in the temple. I am the one in the form of Kalagni Shamana Datta. I came in the form of Sripada Srivallabha out of compassion for living beings. How can you derive any result if you worship my face with camphor lights but drive nails in my feet? Who do you think my parents are? Vishnudatta and his wife mentioned in Datta Purana are born in this Kali Yuga as my parents, Appalaraja Sharma and Sumati Maharani. Sri Bapanarya was born as Labha, son of Sri Vigneshwara in one age, in another age as Labha the Maharshi, and later as Bhaskaracharya in the town of Bruhatshilanagar. His lineage is reversed by those born in the Vaishya caste. It is a part of the divine plan that I was born on Ganesh Chaturthi. The bond of indebtedness with Sri Venkatappaya Sresti from the time of incarnation as Vasavi Kanyaka Parameshwari and the bond of indebtedness with Narsimha Varma in my form of Lord Narasimha in Simhachalam Kshetra are everlasting. As they are really peers, they again have the connection with me in this incarnation. Their love and affection will bind me in every birth. When I incarnate as Narsimha Saraswati, I will be born with an exact resemblance of my maternal grandfather, Sri Bapanarya. Just as he redeems ghosts and spirits by sprinkling water from his copper pot, I will drive away ghosts and spirits troubling my devotees who visit my Gandharvanagar, Ganagapur, during my incarnation as Narsimha Saraswati. I will grant noble positions to those ghosts and spirits. One should not be arrogant simply because he is wealthy. The wealth with you should be pure, otherwise, you will have sorrows. If you are proud that you are holy, you are not at all holy. I have all your accounts with me. Out of compassion, I cancel the results of your sinful deeds. If you are discouraged that you are a sinner, and if you seek my refuge and call me with love, Sripada Datta Srivallabha Digambara, I will in a trice burn all your sins and make you virtuous. Since you consider truth as untruth and untruth as truth, you met with all the difficulties. You have abused Sripada Srivallabha, and because of that, you were entangled in strange and peculiar problems. Even though you conducted devoted reading of the Datta Purana, it has not given you any relief because you abused Sripada. Datta himself has come as Sripada Srivallabha. This is true. Thus concluded Bangarappa. Sripadarajam Sharanam Prapadhye.